What do you say, everybody? It's time for Recruiting with Andrew Bone, and we do it here on the Bamainsider YouTube channel every Tuesday. So make sure you like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up as we talk recruiting with the guru, the best in the business, Mr. Andrew Bone. Hit the bell so you know when we go live, and that way you can join us while it's happening. And don't forget, right now, if you want all the recruiting, you want all of the hot nuggets, you want to know who's coming to Bama, when, where, how, why, all you got to do is Bama Insider on 3. $1 gets you 12 months. I'm positive about that, even though I'm tongue-tied right here. What is up, Bone? How you been?
Been good. How you been?
Look, I'm doing a lot better after the kick by Will Reichert. Alabama with a 20-19 win in Texas. Let's talk about that game and your thoughts on it, and then how does that affect recruiting? I thought it was a great win, but it was a lot tighter than the experts thought.
A lot tighter. I tell you what, Alabama. I don't think they're used to playing these 11 o'clock games. Back in the Shula years, that was that was kind of standard. Playing these 11 a.m. games. It was tough back when I was in college, getting up and going to those games after a late night at Colette's or Innisfree. So it's good that these games are now at 2:30, 6 p.m. There's a few 8 p.m. games here and there, but these 11 a.m.s, it's pretty early. I know these Alabama players aren't really used to it. So, it was an interesting game, just because we all went in, expecting Alabama, not only to win, but to cover the 21-point spread. I mean, I don't think I talked to a single recruit last week who didn't predict Alabama to win by, 20 plus points. Everybody just expected, Tide to go in there and steamroll Texas, and it didn't happen. It was a close game, and I think you got to give Texas a lot of credit. I mean, what an unbelievable atmosphere it was. I mean, it was loud. I mean, it was certainly Texas's Super Bowl, having the Crimson Tide come into town. But they played great. They had a good game plan. They were able to shut Alabama down, for the most part. But the Tide, they found a way to win. And you have those sloppy games from time to time. We've seen that, in a lot of championship seasons for Alabama, where they, a lot of times it's maybe in the middle of the season or a little late in the season where they just don't play their best game. And I don't think this was their best game. There's still a lot to kind of figure out. They got a big win on the road. I mean, I don't think Texas is an unranked team. I think they did move up into the top 25 this week after the narrow loss to Alabama, but they're going to end up being a pretty good team, I believe. And I think Sark's got a really loaded roster. I think there's a lot of talent on that roster, and I think they're going to be good, in the upcoming years. But Alabama got the win. There was a lot of recruits who were in attendance. There were a lot of recruits who were watching the game. We spoke with one recruit, a pretty big name, 5-star that was visiting Florida this past weekend, and he didn't get down to Gainesville too early, so he could watch the Alabama-Texas game. So he got a chance to watch that. And recruits from all across the country were watching that game, and you saw where it was the most watched game ever on Fox in college and pro, which is pretty remarkable. So there were a lot of eyes on that game. There were a lot of recruits in attendance, including a few guys that Alabama and Texas are certainly battling for in the present and in the future, because there were some 2023 guys who were in Austin, but also a lot of 2024 recruits as well. Probably the biggest name that was in Austin this past weekend was Jaylen Hill, the top 100 wide receiver out of Longview High School in Texas. Joseph Hastings, our great recruiting reporter at Bamainsider.com. Joseph, who lives in the state of Florida, got on a plane, flew to the state of Texas on Thursday, got a chance to go see Jalen Hill and Alabama D-line target Jordan Renault play against each other on Friday night. But he also stopped by and saw Malik Muhammad, top 100 defensive back, currently committed to the Longhorns, but says he's definitely going to take an official visit to Alabama this fall. Likely going to make the trip to Tuscaloosa for the A&M game on October the 8th. Hasn't officially set that date in just yet, but is looking at that date as his official visit. So Malik actually wasn't able to, a Texas commitment, is strongly considering Alabama, actually wasn't able to attend the game on Saturday because his high school actually played that day. So he didn't get a chance to go, but we know that he will be in Tuscaloosa a little bit later on this season. Jaylen Hill, as I mentioned, I mean, this is a guy that Alabama and Texas really want. He's going to be in Texas A&M this weekend for the game against the Miami Hurricanes. It's going to be his last official visit before he makes that college decision. He's going to decide on September the 21st. And I know, Jaylen is one of our main talking points today because he is, certainly one of Alabama's prime targets remaining in this recruiting class. Alabama currently with 21 commitments, number one recruiting class in the country, according to On3 Sports and the On3 consensus team ranking. So, Alabama certainly hoping it can add some more talent, especially from the state of Texas, because Texas, as we've seen the last year or two, it's been a tough state to recruit. Ever since Sark got the job, but Alabama has been able to still go in there, recruit really well, and I think they're going to have a chance to land a couple of these guys over the next few weeks. Jaylen Hill, I do believe it's a really tight battle between Alabama and Texas at this point. He had a great trip to Texas this past weekend, but he had a great visit to Alabama a couple of weeks ago, and we had a chance to, speak to his father. Joseph had a chance to talk to Jalen on Friday when he went out there to see him play. Called Alabama wide receiver U, has a great relationship with the Alabama coaching staff led by Holman Wiggins. They've built a very strong relationship with each other throughout this process. So I think Alabama's development at the wide receiver position over the course of the last several years is something that really speaks volumes to him, and he really is very intrigued about. Believes that he can come in and contribute right away, and that's what Alabama's trying to sell him on, as being that next superstar wide receiver in Tuscaloosa. So we'll see what happens in the next week or so, because he's got this visit to A&M this weekend. I don't think the Aggies are really a major threat to Alabama or Texas. I think it's really an Alabama-Texas battle. But we'll see if A&M can get in the mix here. But as of right now, still kind of leaning towards Alabama with Jaylen Hill as we get a little bit closer to that decision date. But it's close, and it's going to probably get even closer as we get a little bit closer to his decision.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right? Alabama, Texas playing. You get a chance to see both programs on the field together for the first time. Next year, they'll play in Tuscaloosa, and then Texas will be in the SEC. And it feels like not only is this going to be a big-time rivalry on the field, and maybe this is one of Alabama's new big rivalries. It was always Alabama, Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, right? Then LSU. Maybe Texas is kind of the next big rival as LSU's kind of slid back a little bit.
Yeah, it could be. I think that Alabama, even though Alabama and Georgia don't play against each other every year, that's kind of replaced. Not necessarily replaced, but because both of them go against each other so much in recruiting right now, and obviously, the SEC championships, the national championship games, that's played a little bit of a role in this new rivalry between Alabama and Georgia. But that we kind of saw the last decade or more with Alabama and LSU. Alabama and LSU still compete against compete against each other for top recruits, but probably not as many as Alabama and Georgia do right now. And I think we're going to continue to see Alabama and Texas recruiting battles, because we're starting to see Texas recruit the state of Alabama, because there are a lot of connections, from coaches who are there on the staff now who recruited for Alabama. They built a lot of really good relationships in the state of Alabama, so they've been recruiting. Nico Johnson, former Alabama linebacker, is a graduate assistant on defense for the Longhorns now, so he knows the state really well, the pride of Andalusia. But we're going to continue to see some great recruiting battles between Alabama and Texas for many years to come. And it's not just Alabama going into Texas, or Texas going into Alabama, we're seeing them go head to head for recruits in Louisiana, Arch Manning, obviously, and several other states. So we're going to continue to see some great recruiting battles between Alabama, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. I mean, there's a lot of great, recruiting battles that we're going to see from, with Alabama, with a lot of top kids for several years, as long as Coach Saban's there, but many years after that.
What about Alabama and Oklahoma? It's another team that's coming to the SEC. Jordan Renault, one of those guys that Alabama would really like to get.
No doubt. Alabama certainly has recruited a lot of similar players that Oklahoma's going after, and they were able to flip some guys in the past, and I certainly think they are going to continue to Jace McClellan. Jace McClellan was an Oklahoma commitment for a long time, but this is certainly a school that recruits really well. Brent Venables, a new first-year head coach at Oklahoma, knows the Southeast really well. Todd Bates, defensive line coach, former Alabama defensive lineman. He recruits the state of Alabama really well. Not many recruits going to Oklahoma just yet from Alabama, but we're probably going to see that happen a little bit more often. Bakari Vickers, who was a top 100 defensive back out of Tallahassee, had Alabama on his short list. He committed to the Sooners last month. And Jordan Renault, that's kind of the main guy that we're watching, as far as Alabama, Oklahoma recruiting battles are concerned right now. This is a guy who narrowed his list down to Alabama and Oklahoma a couple months ago, set the decision date for September the 19th. Now, a lot of people, especially on the Alabama side, were a little nervous because he wasn't going to make a trip back to Tuscaloosa before his commitment. He took a visit to Oklahoma in late July. He had already visited Alabama in June, but took that visit to Oklahoma in late July, then took his official visit to Norman this past weekend. He's going to make a decision on Monday. I really like where Alabama currently sits with him. Now, could things potentially change? Easily. But, I do think that Alabama is in a good position. He talked about, the last time I spoke with him, he really talked about Holman Wiggins, the relationship that he has with Coach Wiggins. Talked to Joseph the other night about, his connection with Freddie Roach and, just the development at the defensive line position. Called Alabama D-line U. I mean, we always hear about Alabama now being NFL U, and, people talk about, wide receiver U or running back U, O-line U. Linebacker U, DB U, but now we're starting to see, obviously a lot of really talented defensive linemen in the NFL, and Alabama certainly has prioritized Jordan Renault for a very long time. And this wasn't a guy that just popped up on the radar in the last few months. They have heavily recruited him for at least a year. I mean, really ever since last summer, and they really like him a lot. I believe he's got a chance to be a really, really good pass rusher in their system. I think they've got a great chance to add his commitment next Monday. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and roll out a prediction on Jordan Renault, and that's going to be for Alabama.
Really?
Absolutely.
So how's he going to do it? I mean, what do we know about the commitment, the way that he's going to, announce? Do we know any of the details of that yet?
Honestly, I haven't seen the details. I'm sure there are some details out there. I haven't seen them just yet, but with him being a top 100 kid, I'm sure he's going to be announcing on some platform. So we'll keep our eyes open. We'll be sure to announce it whenever that comes on Bamainsider. But he played with Alabama running back Jamari Miller last year at Legacy High School to have a really close relationship. Last time I talked to Jordan said, he talks to Jamarian just about every single day, about what life is like at Alabama, everything, from, workouts to nutrition to just being a student in Tuscaloosa. And it's something I think that's really helped him at least, get a better sense of Alabama. He's been there, 3 or 4 times, but just hearing from an actual student athlete who's there, going through everything, exactly what he's going to be going through, I think that's helped him a lot, and I think that's made him feel very comfortable about Alabama.
If they get him, how does it change their class?
Well, it gives them another, really good defensive lineman. I think that, going into this recruiting cycle, defensive line was a top priority, and they've missed on some guys. They missed on Peter Woods, they missed on Kelby Collins. Now, do they potentially have a chance for those guys down the road? We'll wait and see. Kelby Collins is going to take an official visit to Alabama on October the 8th and 9th for that Texas A&M game. Peter Woods hasn't said yet if he's going to make it back to Tuscaloosa. Clemson has that rule where if you're committed, you can't take visits to other schools. But we'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens with Peter throughout the next couple of months. But getting Hunter Osborne on board, getting Edric Hill. Edric Hill looks like potentially a steal in this recruiting class. And he's just having an unbelievable senior season, just a force in the backfield, just about every single play. I think he's got a chance to be a pretty special football player. But, I do think that there are some other defensive linemen still out there that they're certainly going after, that they want to add. They're going to get some more guys on campus throughout the next few months. Certainly still prioritizing Reuben Bain out of Central High School down in Miami. No, I still think it's going to be a tough task for Alabama to pull off because of his connections to the Miami Hurricanes, and being down there in the city. I think that's going to be tough, but Alabama still remains a major threat for him. You have David Hobbs in North Carolina, who's going to be making a trip to Tuscaloosa for the Texas A&M game, and also back for the Iron Bowl for his official visit. You have James Smith, in-state defensive lineman out of Carver High School in Montgomery, remains a top priority for Alabama. And there's some other guys who are out there that they are certainly trying to get on campus these next few months. We'll just kind of have to wait and see who ends up setting up official visits this season and potentially afterwards. But there's still some really talented guys who are out there that I think they're going to have a really good chance to land. If they can get Jordan Renault on board, like I said, that would give them 3 defensive linemen. I said in the beginning, they really need to get 5 defensive linemen in this class. They probably wouldn't turn down 6 if they can get the right guys. But I think 5 is definitely a goal for them, and certainly a goal that I think that they can meet, especially if they get Renault on board next week.
He's Andrew Bone. I'm Mick Gillespie, hanging out with you on the Bamainsider YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up as you hang out with us here and we talk Alabama recruiting and all the things going on in the world of recruiting with the Crimson Tide. As I get my lineup dropped off for me, Bone. Look at this, doing 2 things at once. Anyway, look, you talk about this Crimson Tide wide receiver room. Is there room for any more guys?
Well, I do think, as of right now, they certainly want to get one more guy. They have 2, Cole Adams and Malik Benson. Malik Benson, the top JUCO player in the country. Cole Adams out of Oklahoma suffered a shoulder injury that has sidelined him at least for the remainder of the regular season. But Alabama certainly wants to get one more wide receiver. Jaylen Hill is a major target for them. I feel like he's somebody that they could easily land. Now, it's not going to be easy because Texas is certainly right there, but it is a 2-horse race with Jaylen Hill right now. Like I said, he's going to be visiting A&M this weekend, but in the end, it's Alabama-Texas battle, in my opinion. I think Alabama can win that one, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of pressure on him to stay in state, and he had a great official visit with the Longhorns this past weekend. There's one other guy who's out there that I think that Alabama's got a very realistic chance to land, and that's Jaren Hamilton out of Gainesville, Buckholtz High School. Jaren had a great camp performance in Tuscaloosa in June. Was certainly one of the guys that I would say probably one of the surprises, biggest surprises of the summer for Alabama. Ran a 4.40 multiple times in Tuscaloosa. I mean, he's certainly a guy that has moved up the recruiting board. If they get Jalen Hill, I don't know if I'm trying to word this how I want to. If they get Jalen Hill next week on September the 21st, I still find it hard to believe they're gonna turn down Jaren Hamilton if he wants to commit just because of his speed alone. I mean, they absolutely love this kid. I know numbers crunch is going to be extremely tight, but just from talking to some people that I trust, I just don't think that they're going to slow down recruiting Jaren Hamilton at all. And he's going to make at least one trip to Tuscaloosa this fall. He's going to be at Alabama for the Iron Bowl for his official visit. So continue to watch Jaren Hamilton in the coming months, because this is a guy that brings a lot of speed to the table. Really moved up Alabama's board this summer after camping, and definitely somebody that they really like a lot. So don't see them really slowing down, but numbers are going to be extremely tight. It's going to be probably one of those situations where you meet your needs, but then you got to take the best available guys who are still out there. And I think Alabama considers Darren Hamilton, even though he's just a 3-star. Those 3-stars tend to work out. Kobe Prentice was a 3-star last summer as well before he found his way into the top 100. So let's not hate on 3-stars, guys. This guy's a very, very talented player that's a top target for the Crimson Tide.
Guys, as you hang out with us here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel, pay attention to Chris Daughtry behind the scenes. He's, clicking on all of these guys that we're talking about, and you can do the same thing if you are part of Bama on 3, and it's easy to do right now, and it's very affordable to do right now. You need to jump on this while you can. Bama Insider on 3, BamaInsider.com, $1, you get a year. It's only for one more week. So if you're going to do it, now is the time. Give it a shot for $1. And then next year, if you don't like it, then cancel. But I think you're going to love it. And I'm telling you right now, go ahead and spend $1, because all of this information, not just Bone and Joseph, but a crew of people are constantly filling all of that information. So it really gives you an idea of who the player is, what their strength is, what their weakness is, where they're leaning on going to school. And I'm telling you, when it gets to signing day, you're going to want to have this. You're going to know all these different tidbits. And Bone, you and Joseph are constantly on there adding more stuff.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we constantly have updates on our recruiting board, and not just the recruiting board. It's the Talk of Champions. So it's team coverage, it's NFL, it's recruiting. It's talking about House of Dragon. I mean, we talk about it all on the Talk of Champions. But we are. I certainly believe that that we've got a lot of great content on there right now. I actually just dropped earlier today. When I say earlier today, it was around midnight. My recruiting nuggets. So it's the latest on several of these targets that we just have talked about, but a lot more. I mean, I probably posted some nuggets on about 25 different recruits in this update. So certainly go check that out. We've got a master list of visitors for the fall. So if you're looking to see who's coming in for the Texas A&M game, we've got that. If you're looking to see who's coming in for Arkansas, the Iron Bowl, we already have that on the on our message board. So go check that out. And I certainly encourage anyone who's watching the show this evening to go to Bama Insider right now, because there is an interview with Cormani McClain, 5-star defensive back, #1 defensive back in the country. Joseph, our man, he does a great job of going out on the road and seeing a lot of kids. And he made a trip to Lakeland High School today to go see Cormani McClain and get the latest with him. So go to Bama Insider, check out his interview with Cormani McClain. There's a lot of great things about the Crimson Tide, his relationship with Travaris Robinson, Nick Saban, when he's going to be making the trip back to Alabama, who his top 3 schools are right now as we get closer to him making a decision. And also check out the recruiting nuggets that have been posted on Bama Insider today. So got a lot of great content, plus obviously all of our team all of our team content from Clint Lamb and Jimmy Stein is also on BamaInsider.com right now. It's only a dollar.
Yeah, check it out right now. And guys, in the comment section, keep them coming. We love to hear from you guys. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, hit the bell as you hang out with us here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Talking recruiting with Andrew Bone. All right, let's go to the offensive side of the ball. We'll stay right where we're at. Bama signed 4 tight ends in 2022. It has Ty Lockwood right now committed. Do you see Alabama adding any more tight ends? And do you expect Alabama to add another at a position? And what would you keep an eye on?
tight end wise, I think when Ty Lockwood committed, everybody just assumed that it was over. That the tight end position was filled. No reason to go after anybody else. I think Alabama certainly wanted to get at least one tight end, but they're not opposed to taking two. And there's some guys that they're still recruiting. There's even a couple guys who are going to be making a trip to Tuscaloosa for the Texas A&M game. Deuce Robinson, who is the number one tight end in the country, is going to be visiting that weekend. It's going to be his official visit, even though I think Alabama's on the outside looking in. He likes USC a lot, likes Texas, likes Georgia. He's also a two-sport athlete, so he's got a chance to potentially get drafted pretty high in baseball. So that's something to also watch in the coming months, because baseball is certainly a strong passion for him. But he's going to make that official visit to Alabama. It's not just a visit for him. I mean, this is a school, Alabama is a school that he's very interested in. He visited back in the spring, also trip to Alabama last summer. So this will be his third trip to Alabama. So there's a lot of interest there. But in my opinion, they are on the outside looking in as we kind of head into this visit. So we'll see how much ground Alabama is able to make up with Deuce Robinson if they can really become a top contender in his recruitment. Now, most of the other tight ends that they are recruiting are currently committed elsewhere. And we've seen some guys make trips to Alabama for officials already, including Lawson Lucky, who's a Georgia commitment. Luke Haas, who's committed to Arkansas. Luke's brother also recently committed to Arkansas, so it seems like he's going to be a pretty tough pull for the Tide. Luke Haas is a Georgia legacy, but he has visited Alabama a few times since his commitment. He's back. He was in Tuscaloosa in the spring, took his official visit, and now is expected to be back at Alabama for the Texas A&M game. Likely for the Texas A&M game. It isn't official yet, but I talked to Lawson a couple nights ago, and he told me that that's the game that he's more than likely going to attend. So we'll keep an eye on Lawson Lucky. Alabama also extended an offer about a month ago to maybe 3 weeks ago to Jamari Johnson out of Inglewood, California. Now he's currently committed to Louisville, but says he's going to take an official visit to Alabama at some point. Right now, he seems pretty locked in with Louisville. I know, people say, people are probably going to say, well, it's Louisville compared to Alabama. It's a no-brainer. But, if you look at Louisville's recruiting class, they've recruited really well. The state of California, they've got some big-name commitments, including Reuben Owens, who is who's one of the best running backs in the country out of the state of Texas. So Louisville's recruiting really well, but do expect Jamari to visit. And then Brett Norfleet, who is currently committed to Mizzou as a football and basketball player. A lot of football football and baseball player. A lot of these football and baseball, multi-sport athletes that are being recruited by a lot of schools. Now, Norfleet isn't really a guy that, a lot of people have talked about, but he attended Alabama's 7-on-7 camp during the summer. Alabama really likes this kid. They offered him back in the spring, visited with his high school team. I'm sure Alabama, would love to get him on campus, and I know they're working to get him on campus for an official visit this fall. He's one of these kids that doesn't really say a lot, keeps things pretty tight-lipped. So he doesn't ever. I don't think he ever even did an interview about his commitment to Mizzou with anybody. I mean, it's just one of these kids that doesn't talk, so you just don't know what's going on. But we know that Alabama really likes this kid. And one other guy that they are still, very intrigued with and still continue to have conversations with, he just hasn't visited, is Cooper Flanagan out of California, currently committed to Notre Dame. And Alabama offered him, really, I think it was back in February. It was January or February when they first offered him, said that he was going to take a trip to Alabama, never did. We talked to him back in the spring. He said he was definitely going to try to get to Tuscaloosa for a summer visit. Mm-hmm. Didn't get a chance to make it. But I actually talked to Cooper the other day, still trying to potentially make a trip to Alabama at some point. But as of right now, still pretty locked in with the Irish. But we'll keep an eye on Cooper Flanagan and a lot of these other tight ends throughout the country.
All right, Bone, one more. Let's get into some of these Alabama players. It's been a really productive state, right? Alabama has some of the top recruits in the country, some of the top high school players in the country, some big 5-star guys. How important is it for Alabama to close well in state?
I think it's important. I think as long as you can, block out some of these other schools from coming in and stealing, your best players, you're going to lose some good players from time to time. I mean, Alabama goes into a lot of these other states, and you look at this recruiting class. Alabama has the top 2 players committed from the state of Georgia. Uh, a few months after Georgia wins the national championship, so I'm sure there's a lot of heat on Kirby for that one, and I'm sure that he's going to continue to recruit those guys all the way until signing day. But I think that as loaded as this state is this year, you were bound to lose some guys. You were bound to lose a few really good players. I don't think I think we're probably more surprised at the guys that they lost, as far as Peter Woods, Kelby Collins, 2 guys who grew up Alabama fans. Woods decides to go to Clemson. Kelby decides to go to Florida, even though Kelby's going to come back for that official visit next month. They're still going to have a good chance to. I won't say good chance, but I think they still have a chance to flip either one of those players down the road. Now, Quay, Russo, James Smith remain top priority targets for Alabama. 2 guys who plan on playing together. Now, everybody says that. We see so many kids say, I'm definitely playing with this guy. I'm definitely going to school with him. I'm going to school with my best friend. I'm going to school with my cousin, or I'm going to school with that 5-star guy from all across the country that I've never even met before. I'm definitely playing with him. 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, it doesn't happen. James Smith and Quay Russo are playing together. There's no doubt in my mind that they are going to go to the same school. Mm-hmm. So I think Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, Florida, Ohio State, all those schools are in their top 5. They also have Alabama State in there, but I don't think they're going to end up staying home. I think they're going to go a little bit further than Montgomery. I think that Alabama's got a great chance with both of those kids, but they're not going to make a decision until December. They are taking a visit down to Auburn this weekend, and what's notable about that is there's been 3 weeks of the college football season. This is going to be their second trip to Auburn this season already. So there's a lot of interest in Auburn. Nobody's really giving Auburn much of a chance because everybody just thinks it's an Alabama-Georgia battle with Florida in it. But I'm not predicting them to go to Auburn by any means, at least not yet. But Auburn is certainly a top contender in their recruitment. Quay Russo actually grew up an Auburn fan in an Auburn household. So there's been a lot of, there's definitely a lot of interest there, even though that there's not much stability at Auburn right now. People just don't know what's going to happen with Harsin. I mean, he could end up having a great run the rest of this season, or who knows, he could end up getting fired. People just aren't sure, and that's just kind of the way things are at Auburn right now. But I think they're going to be in it all the way until the end, especially if they win a bunch of games this season. They could be right there in the thick of it all the way until signing day, and could really give Georgia and Alabama a run for their money in the end. So we'll see what happens with those guys. But I do think that it is important to get those guys, especially from a perception standpoint, because losing guys like Kelby Collins and Peter Woods, now A.J. Harris committed to Georgia, but not necessarily in Alabama. He lives in Alabama, but he didn't grow up in Alabama. He's been in Alabama for just a couple of years. Always kind of felt like he was going to go outside the state anyway. Thought he was going to end up at Florida or potentially Ohio State, but ends up at Georgia. So, big win there for the Bulldogs. But I do think that you got to at least close strong. But you also don't need. It's not about closing strong. It's about holding on to the guys that you also have committed. Tony Mitchell,
right?
An unofficial visit to Auburn this past weekend. He's going to be visiting Texas A&M this weekend. This is the second time that he's gone to Texas A&M since his commitment to Alabama in June. Now, am I overly concerned about him potentially flipping to the Aggies? Not yet. There's a lot more confidence coming out of a College Station with their reporters than there is as far as Alabama reporters being worried, or even Alabama coaches. Tony was in Tuscaloosa a couple weeks ago for the season opener against Utah State. Expect him back at Alabama throughout the season. He's going to take some official visits now. He's going to probably get back to Texas A&M. This is not his visit to A&M this weekend is not official. It's just an unofficial. So he's probably going to go back, probably going to take an official visit to Auburn, but he'll be back in Tuscaloosa for his official in December, probably that last weekend before the early signing period. That's usually when Alabama likes to get their commitments in town for that last weekend, so they wrap things up and make sure those guys are pretty solid. So I think that's probably going to be the case with Tony Mitchell when all is said and done. But obviously, you got to watch these visits to A&M, because A&M was considered the favorite for Tony for a while, and now he's made 2 trips back to College Station since that commitment to Alabama. Has a lot of Alabama fans worried. I'm not too concerned just yet, but certainly something that we're going to continue to watch, as the season goes along.
Well, great stuff as always, Bone. Anything else that you want to talk about before we close up shop tonight on recruiting with Andrew Bone?
No, it's been a fun start to the high school football season. We continue to see a lot of great performances out there. Richard Young had a great performance on Friday night. I think he rushed for over 285 yards, a couple touchdowns. Had a chance to interview his high school coach, James Chaney. So we actually have that interview on Bamainsider right now. So go check that interview out. He talked about Richard's performance, his visit to Florida earlier this year. Might be going to Ohio State here next week. So he kind of updates us on where things stand in his recruitment. Not too concerned about any of his visits just yet. Jonze Pierre, who we'll give a shout out to because his father passed away, unfortunately, on, I believe it was Friday or Saturday. And Jonze's been having a heck of a season. I think he's got a chance to potentially move up into that 5-star category based on his performance this season. Edric Hill's doing really well. Brayson Hubbard out of Ocean Springs, he had 150 yards rushing. This is a guy who's going to be playing safety at Alabama in the future. And Brayson won Mr. Football in Mississippi last year in Class 6A as a quarterback, but he did a little bit more running the ball this past week as he had, like I said, over 150 yards rushing. So we're seeing a lot of great performances out there. Eli Holstein, his second game this past weekend, I think he had 5 total touchdowns. So we're going to see more big performances throughout the season, and certainly looking forward to keeping up with all those guys. And as Joseph is on the road every single week, so we'll be sending him to see a couple guys later on this week, including a stop to see a pretty big 5-star target that we'll update everyone on the Bamainsider message board a little later this week.
Yeah, follow Andrew Bone, follow Bamainsider on 3. You can do it right now, $1 for a year subscription. One more week of this available at Bamainsider.com. And as you hang out with us here, as we do every Tuesday with Andrew Bone, like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Also, hit the bell so you know when we're live. Share with your friends. Comment section. You guys have been great again today, and we really appreciate it. Don't forget, Bone will be joining me on the Tailgate Show Friday night, 6 to 8 right here, as he does each and every week, as he's done each and every week during football season for years now. So make sure you swing over there for that. Great job behind the scenes, Chris Daughtry, and for Kyle Henderson and Mr. Andrew Bone, I'm Mick Gillespie. We'll do it again next Tuesday. Have a great week, everybody, and roll tide.